Hello everyone, my name's Ross and I'm going to show you how to ace the Fizz Buzz coding challenge, sometimes called the Fizz Buzz code kata, for the purpose of an interview or an assessment. Now, if you are an interviewer or assessor, whether you actually want to use Fizz Buzz for that purpose to assess your candidates, that's a whole other question. That's the subject of a blog article that I've written, and the link to that is in the description. But for now, let's just concentrate on Fizz Buzz. Let's see the best way to break down the requirement and ultimately how to write the code as well. So let's start with the requirement. Fizz Buzz is a TDD, test-driven development code kata. So a lot of the test here, a lot of the assessment is going to be whether you understand how to break a problem down in a test-driven development way and implement it in a test-driven development way. So a lot of that is about where to break up your requirement. Let's check out this requirement, but first of all, let's take a small step back and I'll explain what Fizz Buzz is in the real world, outside of the world of software development and code katas and so on. Fizz Buzz is a drinking game. You go around the table with everybody that's drinking, and each person says a sequential number, 1, 2, etc., all the way around the table. If your number is divisible by 3, then you say fizz instead of the number. If it's divisible by 5, then you say buzz instead of the number. If it's divisible by 3 and 5, which, by the way, is the same thing as it being divisible by 15, but we'll go into that later, then you say Fizz Buzz. And if you get it wrong, you got a drink, right? Such is the nature of drinking games. Let's have a look at the requirement for the code kata, and you'll see how it's the same as the drinking game, right? Write a program that accepts a sequential number from 1 to 100 and prints them, except for multiples of 3, where it should print fizz instead of the number, and for multiples of 5, it should print buzz. For numbers which are multiples of both 3 and 5, print Fizz Buzz. The final output should look like this, and then it shows you the final output there. So if you're a decent programmer, you should be able to program that all in one go, probably. You're going to be able to do that. But it's an incredibly bad idea to do that. You're not using TDD, and you're not breaking down a requirement properly. So certainly in an assessment scenario, you're going to fail that assessment if that's what you do. You've got to break this down properly. And each section into which you break this down has to be runnable and testable and be a stepping stone to the final solution. That's the idea. So let's check this out and see where we can break it up. Write a program that accepts a sequential number from 1 to 100 and prints them. I think that can be testable in and of itself. We'll come back to that particular one in a moment, but that's going to be testable on its own. So that could be a stepping stone. Except for multiples of 3, where it should print fizz instead of the number. Okay, that's testable on its own as well. Right? So the idea is the first program that we write, first iteration, we'll do this, step 1. The second iteration, we'll do both 1 and 2, and then we've got the third iteration, which will sort out buzz when it's a multiple of 5. And then the final iteration, we'll see in a moment, will be for 15 for Fizz Buzz. So there you've got 4 iterations there, each testable on its own. Or is it? Be very careful. If we look at this, the second iteration here is saying accept. So you're saying, write a program that accepts a sequential number from 1 to 100 and prints them. And then in the second one, you're saying, hold on a minute, that stuff that you did at first, that was wrong. So here's a way around that. Instead of saying from 1 to 100 and prints them here, consider if we interpret the requirement like this, in this order. Remove that and returns it. There you go. Now, this number 1 here is a stepping stone to number 2, 3, and 4. And then if we say, see all of this stuff that you've done with all of the exceptional scenarios, with all of Fizz Buzz, numbers being divisible by other numbers and all of that kind of thing, you do that from 1 to 100 at the end, once you've got it all right. So then you can go from the fine level of detail in your subroutines and your methods, and then to a more coarse level of detail. Do the whole thing from 1 to 100. Doing the whole thing from 1 to 100 at first will just make life difficult for you. It'll look as though you're not very experienced with TDD. Okay, so this is the order we'll do it in. We've divided it into 5. Now it's time to start up IntelliJ, and I'll set up a project, a very simple basic project with one test class and one class that does the implementation. And I'll see you there.